Okay, so good morning. Great to be here and fantastic to hear some of the stuff that's going on. Great. I'm Chief Executive of BRE, that's Building Research Establishment. We're an independent research body that's been around forever, doing research, multidisciplinary, and setting standards that go into the building regulations and government policy and practices that allows the built environment to go better and become better. One of the reasons I'm pleased to be here today is because we need to connect more with this sector to think about how we deliver the infrastructure that's required for cars that drive like railway tracks, like you were talking about, or whatever. We need to think about how we do the infrastructure and also how we deliver some of the outcomes we need in the built environment to make things better for our economy, for society, and for the environment. And also for the last 6 years, I worked for the Olympic Delivery Authority, where I oversaw sustainability for the Olympic Games, and learned quite a lot about how transport and vehicles and things like that were important for the delivery of our project. I just wanted to share a few thoughts with you. And my goal is to try and make some connections so that we can integrate more what we do in the built environment with what you're doing, so we can move forward together. And I want to talk about systems. Loads of things are changing all at the same time. That's impacting on what you're doing and what you've been talking about on the built environment. So by 2015, life expectancy here will be increasing at more than a year per year. That means by 2050, half our people will be over 65. It means we have to change our health system. Our health service is one that's actually a sickness treatment service whose success is measured by how quickly and how cheaply they treat people. That is not sustainable. We've got to turn it on its head, prevent people getting ill, keep them well in their homes. That's a complete change. Many more obese people and all sorts of issues around that. Energy prices rising. That's a real problem. Loads of CO2 is coming from buildings. 40% of the CO2 arisings in Britain come from our buildings. And that's important for climate mitigation. But what's more important is now 1 in 5 households in Britain is in fuel poverty. 10% of those people living in those homes have some sort of physical problem, which is costing us many billions to treat. Several tens of percent are depressed, anxious, and we have a whole subset of our society now who are leading substandard lives, and that's not acceptable in our country. So whatever our priorities around CO2, what are we going to do about society? How can we help them come out of fuel poverty? Energy efficiency is really important there. Loads of technology coming in, need to do more for less. I mean, many things all changing all at the same time. And we're addressing them very fast in the built environment. And loads of the things that have been talked about for decades are now actually progressing because there's an imperative. Now, on the Olympics, you'll have seen over the last couple of weeks some wonderful venues. Low cog, the volunteers, the spectators, the athlete did a wonderful job. I was the builder on the building side, and we had a number of venues which look much different to this when they're wrapped in pretty colours and things like that. But very different venues, the main stadium, the aquatic centre, the velodrome, all achieved pretty remarkable outcomes. And if we think about, well, what did we achieve on the build programme? We came in over £500 million under budget. We worked 20 million hours without a reportable accident, no serious injuries, no deaths on our project. We delivered early, so we finished the aquatic centre, which was a complete nightmare to build, a year before the game started, so LOCOG have plenty of time to practice. We met or exceeded all our green targets, which was what I was employed in to do. We had no litigation, nobody falling out, nobody suing anybody. We had hardly any rework. Why was that? And the reason we did that was because we had a system in place. We used something that comes from my company, BRE, and these factors, management, energy, water, materials, are all factors that influence the built environment. They influence the greenness of buildings. And the important thing about this system is you have science and equations that allow you to calculate energy efficiency, for example, which is different to embodied impacts of materials. But in this system, you can benchmark, compare and contrast them. Every building had to achieve 73 credits against BREEAM. And the important thing is you don't tell people how to do it or what to buy to do it. You say, this is a framework, work out how to do it safely, cheaply, efficiently, and in a green way that works for the venue you're doing. We also bought everything against a balanced scorecard. So cost, being on time, employing only the right companies were imperatives. And when we bought things, on one of the parameters was, of course, cost, but around 20 to 25% of the evaluation was based on cost. Everybody assumed at the beginning, if you asked to only work with companies that employed people properly or who dealt with environmental issues, it's bound to cost more. The reality is, if you employ companies that are running themselves well, they deliver for you. If you think about the principles of sustainability, which are minimising resource use, minimising waste arisings and optimising efficiency, you save cost. So actually, we found a win-win. At BRE, we've got an innovation park. It's like an Olympic park, but it's building zero-carbon homes and other things today. A whole range of buildings, looking at different materials, looking at designs. And these are different waves of building green homes. This one actually is one built by Prince Charles's community foundation for improving the built environment. It's a really passive building, works very well. I actually showed this one because the Eco Rally came there last year, and we had this rather eclectic mix of a traditional-looking building with state-of-the-art, well, I thought they were state-of-the-art vehicles. I'm not sure now, having listened to you chaps. Some of the things we learned about with Transport for London 2012 was really we tried to reduce the need for any vehicle movements. We used public transport, we used walking, we used bicycle ways, and other things like, for example, just practically getting all our materials to site. We had a goal that 50% would not be delivered by rail. And this was really important because during the build process, we had a truck coming through the north part of the park every 12 seconds. So for about 3 years, a truck coming through a congested part of London every 12 seconds. This picture is about concrete. Actually, we brought all our concrete products in by rail, because if we'd had to bring them in through the north part of the park, instead of having a truck every 12 seconds, we'd have had one every 6 seconds. That would have been a logistical nightmare, appalling for health and safety and pollution and other factors. Okay, so it's horses for courses. When it comes to cities and how they're laid out, 80% of the population around the world will be living in cities by 2050. That's a major change. You have to think of different transport things, and you've also got to think about how the car and how the community interface with each other. These have always been priorities, but they're more so than ever before. And what's interesting too is, we've got some real issues about if we generate renewable power on buildings, often you generate the power during times when people aren't in the buildings. How do we store that power, and how can we use it when there's need, say at night time when there's no sun or whatever? And the one question is about whether electrical vehicles could be have some sort of storage capacity. Anyway, so what we need to do more of, I'm conscious of time, don't worry. What we need to do more of is think about the new system. How do we combine different ways of transportation that deal with some of the health issues? How do we design neighbourhoods where the car's redundant? Where we do have cars, how can we make sure that they connect in and work in the right way? We've got energy companies now who are proactively looking at how they grow their business by selling less watts, volts and amps. So they're delivering energy efficiency into homes to help their customers do better. I don't know what the model is in here for the automotive sector, but there's a lot to do, and we'd like to work with you to help ameliorate some of these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter.